monitoring stations and to replace, repair, operate, and maintain existing monitors. C. $3 million shall be to deploy, integrate, and operate air quality sensors in low-income and disadvantaged communities. And D. $15 million shall be for testing and other agency activities to address emissions from wood heaters. And E. $50 million shall be for monitoring emissions of methane. 2. $50 million shall be to carry out, with respect to greenhouse gases, sections 111, 115, 169, 177, 202, 211, 213, 231, and 612, and other sections of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. 7411, 7415, 7479, 7507, 7521, 7545, 7547, 7571, 7671K, and others, and 3. $5 million shall be to provide grants to states to adopt and implement greenhouse gas and zero-emission standards for mobile sources pursuant to Section 177 of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. 7507. B. Administration of funds, of the funds made available pursuant to subsection A. 1. The administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency shall reserve 5% for activities funded pursuant to such subsection other than grants. Sec. 30107. Funding to address air pollution at schools. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $50 million, to remain available until expended, for grants, rebates, contracts, and other activities to monitor and reduce air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions at schools in low-income and disadvantaged communities under subsections A through C of Section 103 of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. 7403, and Section 105 of that Act, 42 U.S.C. 7405, of which the administrator shall reserve not less than 25% for technical assistance to such schools. 1. To address environmental issues. 2. To develop school environmental quality plans that include standards for school building, design, construction, and renovation. And 3. To identify and mitigate ongoing air pollution hazards. Sec. 30108. Low Emissions Electricity Program. Part A of Title I of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. 7401 at Sec. As amended, is further amended by adding at the end the following. Sec. 135. Low Emissions Electricity Program. A. Appropriations. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the administrator for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $100 million, to remain available until expended, except that no funds shall be disbursed after September 30, 2031, to carry out this section. B. Use of funds. Of the amounts made available by subsection A, the administrator shall use 1. Not less than $10 million for consumer-related education and partnerships with respect to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that result from domestic electricity generation and use. 2. Not less than $10 million for education, technical assistance, and partnerships within low-income and disadvantaged communities with respect to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that result from domestic electricity generation and use. 3. Not less than $10 million for industry-related outreach and technical assistance, including through partnerships, with respect to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that result from domestic electricity generation and use. Four. Not less than $10 million for outreach and technical assistance to state and local governments, including through partnerships, with respect to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that result from domestic electricity generation and use. 5. Not less than $1 million to assess, not later than the date that is 1 year after the date of enactment of this section, the reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that result from changes in domestic electricity generation and use that are anticipated to occur on an annual basis through fiscal year 2031. And 6. Not less than $20 million to carry out this section to ensure that the anticipated reductions in greenhouse gas emissions from domestic electricity generation and use as assessed under paragraph 5 are achieved through use of the authorities of this Act, including through the establishment of requirements under this Act. Sec. 30109. Funding for Section 211 of the Clean Air Act. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $15 million, to remain available until expended, to carry out Section 211 of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. $75.45, of which 1. Not less than $5 million shall be for the development and establishment of tests and protocols regarding the environmental and public health effects of a fuel or fuel additive, internal and extramural data collection and analyses to regularly update applicable regulations, guidance, and procedures for determining life cycle greenhouse gas emissions of a fuel, and the review, analysis and evaluation of the impacts of all transportation fuels, including fuel life cycle implications, on the general public and on low-income and disadvantaged communities, and 2. Not less than $5 million shall be for new grants to industry and other related activities to support investments in advanced biofuels. Sec. 30110. Funding for implementation of the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act. A. In general. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $42 million, to remain available until September 30, 2026. To carry out Section 103 of Division S of Public Law 116-260, of which 1. $3,500,000 shall be to deploy new implementation and compliance tools, and 2. $15 million shall be for competitive grants for reclaim and innovative destruction technologies. B. Administration of funds, of the funds made available pursuant to subsection A. 2. The Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency shall reserve 5% for administrative costs of carrying out such Section 103. Sec. 30111. Funding for enforcement technology and public information. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $50 million, to remain available until expended, except that no funds shall be disbursed after September 30, 2031, to address air pollution, of which 1. $37 million shall be to update Integrated Compliance Information System of the Environmental Protection Agency and any associated systems, necessary information technology infrastructure, or public access software tools to ensure access to compliance data and related information. 2. $7 million shall be for grants to states, Indian tribes, and air pollution control agencies, as such terms are defined in Section 302 of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. (7602) to update their systems to ensure communication with such integrated compliance information system and any associated systems, and 3. $6 million shall be to acquire or update inspection software for use by the Environmental Protection Agency, states, Indian tribes, and air pollution control agencies, as such terms are defined in Section 302 of the Clean Air Act, 42 U.S.C. 7602, or to acquire necessary devices on which to run such inspection software. Sec. 30112. Greenhouse gas corporate reporting. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Environmental Protection Agency Office of Air and Radiation for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $5 million, to remain available until expended, except that no funds shall be disbursed after September 30, 2031. For the Environmental Protection Agency to support 1. Enhanced standardization and transparency of corporate climate action commitments and plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. 2. Enhanced transparency regarding progress toward meeting such commitments and implementing such plans. And 3. Progress toward meeting such commitments and implementing such plans. Sec. 30113. Environmental Product Declaration Assistance. A. In general,